Hello and welcome to Draft2Digital Spotlight. This is Mark 2 Digital, or Mark Lefebvre if you prefer to strangle your tongue a little bit. And I have with me an insider from Draft2Digital. I'm going to be chatting with Elyssa Dolinger. Elyssa, welcome to the D2D Spotlight.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
It's great to get you, who you're normally behind the scenes supporting all the cool stuff that Dan and Kevin and I get to do. For example, the cool graphics that we get to pop up and everything. It's so awesome that we get to pull you from backstage and get to pull you onto the stage. So your official title at Draft2Digital is?
I am the graphic designer. I was just telling Mark that sometimes I switch it up depending on who I'm emailing. But yeah, I'm the graphic designer. I do all the graphics. I do user interface and usability, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And I think we managed to sneak you onto a couple of the D2D live Q&A things that Kevin and Dan and I were doing.
I love watching these. I mean, I make all the graphics, so I know who's coming up.
That is awesome. So we're going to talk about design principles, and that's going to be from the very basics. So we're looking like right just above you on the screen, you've got the D2D spotlight with the D2D colors and stuff like that. You're responsible for all of the look and feel of that, right?
Yes. So I guess what I wanted to say about design principles is that, like marketing, it sounds scary, but in practice, it's not really very scary. It's all about contrast and making sure that everything can be seen, which sounds kind of obvious, but is a little bit less obvious when you're putting it together yourself. So I guess book covers is something we all have as authors here. So I just wanted to talk about, like one thing that nobody seems to do when they're starting out is leave space around the edges, because sometimes vendors crop it a little weird. You just never know how it's going to work out. And visually you want some breathing room. So, always just pretend there's, a couple pixels all the way around that you just don't cross. Another thing that will make your book cover a lot better is making your name big. You're an author. You are the brand. You're selling yourself. Put your name on there really big so people can find your books. Seems like a lot of starting authors put their names teeny tiny.
Is that think a confidence thing? If they're a new author, they're thinking, well, I'm not J.K. Rowling or Stephen King.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think maybe because starting authors maybe only have one book and they think, oh, they're interested in the title. Well, actually, they're interested in the title and who made it, because if you make it well enough, they're going to want more. And then they need a way to find more.
Okay. One of the things I've seen is a lot of authors, because ebooks is still relatively new. I know we're in it, and that's our world, Draft2Digital. But there are a lot of authors who maybe look at a print book and see on the print book it's a large, right? It's a large print book, and so the name is not. It's relatively big when you see it as a 6x9 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's different when you're looking at a thumbnail on an online retailer, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Print and web work differently. Another thing that sounds obvious until you see it in practice, things on the web need to be just a little bit bigger to be readable, higher contrast, that sort of thing. In print, you can get away with a lot smaller text. You can get away with, there's usually a lot more space on the edges of the book. You can customize your font. You can do a lot of things in print that you really can't do on the web. And the same is true for print versus ebook.
Okay, that's cool. I have to pop this comment up early because I know we're going to be taking questions at the end. But Kirby Jones says, I tell designers I want it James Patterson big.
Yes.
And that's a good thing that authors should tell their designers, right?
Yes.
Well, especially if the designer is from traditional publishing and they're used to designing for print books. Maybe they're not thinking of those thumbnails as well.
Maybe.
So, are there other principles related to color?
Well, one of the big principles of color is the color wheel, and contrasting, and oh goodness, now I'm going to lose my designer card because I've forgotten the word. But the opposites on the color wheel, the complementary colors. Ha, I got my designer card back.
You got it back. The cat
So,
took it for just one moment.
yeah, the cat. This is my lap cat. Her name is Syl. She just lives on my lap when I'm designing at my desk here. So fur is flying. Complementary colors.
Yes.
So you wouldn't want to do red and pink. They're too close on the color wheel. You would want to do pink and green, or purple and yellow, or, you'll see a lot of sports teams actually use complementary colors just because it shows up really well. But also, if you notice, one color is dark, like purple, and one color is usually lighter, like yellow. So when you put them together, there's natural contrast. You don't want things to be the same value. Not only is that just terrible for colorblind people, and shout out to our CEO who is colorblind and does a lot of colorblind testing for us, but yeah, if there's not enough contrast, it just all gets very muddy. And you want something punchy, something that's going to get people's attention, and something that's very understandable, even, when it's tiny.
That is really, really cool. Thank you for that. So in terms of the color wheel, are there places, well, usually we recommend that authors work with a professional designer if they can, rather than try to do it themselves.
I'm a fan.
Of course. But just so an author can understand what their designer is going through, where would they see? Is it just something you would just Google and you would find like a color wheel or primary colors? Or
Yeah, you can even look up color palettes. People make color palettes for fun.
okay.
There are websites out there that will teach you all about color, tertiary colors, and just there's some crazy theory out there if you want to get into it, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
So I want to get back to one of the ways that you support the overall Draft Digital team, and it's the colors and the logo and the Draft2Digital Books2Read, all of that stuff. Even and I have on my whiteboard over there the D2D colors that we use for the
branding guide.
Yeah, the branding guide as well, because you created templates. So when Kevin and Dan and I are doing presentations for authors, we have this template that makes it consistent.
Yeah.
What's the value of that kind of consistency? And I guess we'll take it from an author's perspective, of course, but what is the value to brand of that sort of consistency?
Well, I mean, people know who you are, what you do. I don't know, we wanted it to get to the point where people see a 2 and they think of us, they see that that special sort of reddish orange and they think of us, they think of action, they think of all the things that we do.
Okay. So yeah, so even looking at that logo and looking at that too, well before I joined the company, anytime I saw, because it's not a font I was familiar with, and obviously you've adapted into that little arrow as well, very distinctive. So that's kind of cool. So, all right. So moving from that sort of graphic design and talking about templates, a lot of authors have asked questions because when you go to load your book into Draft2Digital, you can take a Word document, and we have these pretty awesome templates.
Yes.
For the way it's going to look when it gets converted. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I worked extensively with our lead programmer, Toby, and we tested the heck out of those things. We went through our author demographics and we looked at, what sort of percentage of people are using, are publishing in romance, what number of people are publishing nonfiction, So we tried to give more than one template to the major genres, and then we really went at it on every single device type we could find to make sure that the graphics were represented even when they change, because ebooks are reflowable and you can change it on your device what color the background is. Apple allowing sepia was actually a huge wrench in the plans because we were like, oh, we can't have it be, too light of a gray. Like, these are gifts that we've implanted in the books to be the templates, and they're slightly off black because we couldn't have them black, because if you have the background as black, it won't show up. If you have it
Oh,
too
okay.
light, it looks weird on sepia. Like, we just had to find the perfect gray, I guess.
Oh, to compensate for all of those
Yes.
possibilities because an ebook is so flexible for the
Yes.
reader, right?
And we tested all of the positioning because people can blow up the text size on their e-readers. So we wanted it to flow with the text, how it's supposed to, bump it down if it's supposed to, and all of that sort of stuff. So we did a lot of work to get those just so. And now that we have the templates, the positioning was probably the hardest part, I would say. But people are always asking us, will you add more templates? I love this. It's just not quite right for my book. Well, if you want something, like, we tried to hit the broadest demographics that we could for these
Right.
templates. If you want something like perfectly tailored for your book, that's when you're going to want to go to someone who's a professional who does this, all the time. But if you have a suggestion, and customer support's going to kill me, but if you have like a dire need, we love hearing suggestions,
Right.
just so we know, like, we can keep a tally. We've had, so many people asking for Halloween templates, usually when October is coming up, or,
But not in December usually.
right. But we can't get too many very super specific templates
Right.
out there. But if we have 200 people email in and ask for a Halloween template, I mean, we're probably going to give the people what they want.
Right. Or maybe less very specific to one my favorite holiday, the best holiday ever, Halloween, of course, because I love that stuff.
Of course,
But
that's why I used
maybe
it.
something a little less specific, but more generic for a
Right.
popular genre. So, for example, maybe a specific kind of thriller or crime fiction, and it's a template where there's, well, you know what, we're seeing enough demand that it's because you and Toby actually have to spend a significant amount of time getting it right, testing it on
Right.
every single, Kindle, Nook, Kobo, Apple device, like all the
Right.
different things out there, right, to make sure that it
There's
actually looks
actually
good.
a bookshelf in the customer support section of the building, where they have all these chargers and all the different devices are plugged in, so that, when somebody calls in and says, oh, I have a Kindle, they can, try and fire it up and see what the customer is seeing. So we just like went in there and stole all those for a couple weeks when we were doing all of our testing.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Now you just mentioned the office, and I have to ask. So you got the cat there. You're working from home because I've
Yes.
never seen the cat in the office when I've been there. But
No, some people are allergic, I guess.
so Oklahoma City is the home office for Draft Digital, and I normally get to share an office with you when I come in. I jump into
Right,
the extra desk around the corner in your office.
right.
And you've been working from home, so have the home office staff since sort of quarantine,
March,
COVID-19.
sometime in March. I actually went into the office on Monday, because I did not have a camera for this interview.
We could
So I was like, well, I
interview
better go in and steal it and bring it home.
But
Um, but all of my calendars were still on March. And when I booted up my computer, it said I had 27 missed events because, I set all the spotlight reminders. So I guess it had been 27 days since I had been in the office. So sometime in March, because that's when my calendars were still set to, physical flipping the calendar.
How easy was that to adapt to be working remotely for D2D?
Uh, D2D, I feel like we had been training for this all along because we actually work from home every Friday as an optional thing. But, pretty much everybody has taken advantage of that you can work from home on Friday every once in a while.
Right.
It makes it easy for deliveries or, back when those were a thing. Um, but yeah, we had all gotten used to communicating remotely. We have people who are full-time remote, like you and Kevin. So I feel like it was a pretty seamless transition, except for the childcare issues. I have 3 kids. I bribed them to stay upstairs. I was like, here, have a tablet.
So that's some of the strategies we're advising authors on how you can still get work done with young ones in the home, right?
Sure,
So
yeah.
tablet bribing is one. And what's something else that's worked?
With the kids?
Yeah.
Oh man, we have so many, I guess, programs. Like, we have a whole ticket system in our house, so like they can elect to do chores, and then they do
Oh,
tickets, and then they buy things from the family store with their tickets. So like, um, my youngest, when he does not pee the bed, he gets a ticket. Well,
okay.
he reached 2 tickets, and that's enough to buy Nutella and pretzels as a special snack because, it's really sugary, so that's a special sometimes treat.
Oh, that's really cool. It's interesting that you use a lot of the same techniques for your the young folks in your family as you do on Kevin and Dan and I to keep us in line when we're planning things like the spotlights
If
and
it
stuff like
works,
that.
it works, Mark.
Yeah, and I've earned just enough tickets to get a chance to actually not have to wear a jacket for the next interview that I do. So
But
that's
you
really
still
exciting.
have to wear your Spider-Man shirt.
Yes, I will do it. Which we did. Kevin and I both did that last night at an author event. Um, I want to go back to design a little bit. I know that you have a pet peeve related to fonts that you wanted to talk about.
Um, I we get a lot of questions about fonts in ebooks. Should I buy a font? Should I buy the EPUB um, embed license for my book? And the answer is no. Don't buy a font
Okay.
for your EPUB. You can, you shouldn't.
Now, why is that?
It's because of the that's a hard word. Customizability of all of the different readers. People have
Okay.
it set how they like. They have, extra width between the lines. They have it blown up super big. And a lot of these options are disabled when you embed a font. I'm not sure if EPUB readers have maybe grown up and gotten past that, but the last time we tested it, it sort of ruins everything because it forces you into that font and exactly as it's set, and you just can't customize it how you want. And it's just a way to get your readers to be mad at you, and you're spending money to make them mad at you. So just don't and save yourself the money.
It's like a double whammy, right? You're spending money and they're upset. So
Right.
now that you're talking about inside the interior
Yes.
of the book, but that may not be the case for designing a cover, right? You may want.
Right. And using non standard fonts on your cover, that's fine, but that's a normal commercial license for the fonts. And, since Google Fonts is a thing and Font Squirrel, like they all have their licenses in line. I do not trust other font places like Duh Font or other ones because when you download it, you check the license, or you should be checking the license. And a lot of times it says this is not a free font. Don't be sharing this, don't be using it, or if you use it for commercial, you need to give me credit somehow, or
Right.
and there's not like a good or easy way for the font creator to verify that. So it's, like you're probably not going to get caught, but if you get caught, like just why? There's so many good free font options with good solid licensing. So just go to reputable sources for your fonts.
Okay, so just let's repeat the reputable sources that
um,
you recommend.
there's Google Fonts is a big one, and Font Squirrel, and I'm
Okay.
sure there are other, like they're mainly like a lot of paid sources like My
Right.
Fonts and Adobe. Of course, you can buy fonts through
And buy
Adobe.
them through them. Where do you
Um,
find the licensing? So you can say, yes, you can use this for.
when you download the font, it is a zip folder.
Okay.
When you open up the folder, there should be a licensing README in there,
Okay.
along with the font. A lot of times it's like instructions on how to
Right.
install your font, and then at the bottom there are terms for use. So just check those. It should say good for commercial, and that covers your book cover.
Okay. And so that would be a thing where if I see that attribution, use this for attribution, that I would put on my copyright page saying that this font by so and so, and then sometimes they ask for a URL as well.
Yes,
That you put that in the
yes,
copyright page, the
yes.
acknowledgement, something like that.
And Draft2Digital makes that pretty easy, right?
Yeah, and indeed, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Some of those automatic things that D2D has. So I uploaded my Word document. I can pick one of these sexy templates, and then I've bombarded the customer service team with a request to get my very specific skull Halloween template for my books. And but I may not have a copyright page, or I may want to have an also, if you like this, you might like that. What are some of those options that authors have when they upload their ebook?
Oh man, I wish I had it open to look, because there's a whole page full
But
of
you were behind the
options.
design of those, right? Like,
There's like the also buy page. There is the universal book link page, signing up for your email list through Books2Read. Um, of course, there's copyright, and dedication is one, but
oh yeah,
like there's not, you don't put a huge amount of text. Please don't put a huge amount of text on your dedication
my
page.
dedication's only 3,000 words. I don't understand why you have an issue with that.
It should be like, thanks, Mom. You did a
Okay,
really good job making
okay.
me.
That's fantastic. So when you're talking about fonts, you're talking about sources for fonts and where you can download them and how to find the license. What then? And we talked about covers.
Mhm.
So there's another source where people, if they're making their own covers or they're working with a designer, um, and that's stock images.
Right.
What are some tips or advice or thoughts about stock images and covers?
Um, there are some free stock photo sites, but you'll find that the free stock photos are stock photos that are used and recycled a lot because they're free. So they're the ones that everyone finds when they're looking for free stock photos. If you can afford it, usually stock photos are not that expensive. 2, maybe $5 for the picture that is going to represent your book is totally worth it. But even then, finding a good stock photo that other people haven't used, like maybe it's because we see book covers all the time. We see a lot of repeats, and that actually happened to Kevin the other day, in that he saw someone else's book with a similar title, a similar, the same stock photo, and he was like, "Oh man, I should have edited that stock photo more. I should have changed it. I should have flipped it. I should have." He had his stock photo regrets. So I guess if you have a stock photo, and you're working with a designer, you might tell them, I would like to see a lot of editing, or I would like to see a customization in this way, or can you change the color of the stock photo, which is a very easy thing to.
Yeah, change the color, and you can even layer more than one stock photo that actually creates a unique new image out of that, right?
Oh, my favorite thing to do is take, like maybe 3 photos. I think I created a book cover for someone where it was a motorcycle story. And the guy was supposed to be going across West Texas, which is very arid. So I think I took a picture, like a stock photo from Africa, and then like edited out all the very recognizably African trees and put like an oak tree and then like the motorcycle guy, and like it ended up being a mix of like 5 different stock photos,
Okay. So
which
one of
a
them,
designer should be able to put together.
and one of them might be recognizable, but once you apply them, you've created a completely
Right,
new image. So
you've
it's
made
your
something
own, right?
completely new.
Okay, so that's kind of cool. I think one of the other things I know I've done this once is I've just zoomed in. So I got the stock photo and
Right,
I got
and
the
then drop.
gigantic, poster size pixel, that I could,
Right,
cover my house with it. And then I zoomed in on one element of it.
right.
And I think that can sometimes help because you're focusing
Partial
just on.
cropping, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and another thing, like I said, just changing the color temperature of the photo. So, say it's a horror book cover and you change it to be more blue or more green, even just that subtle difference makes it different.
Okay. Well, that is cool. And just for indie authors who are concerned and worried, oh my God, this is a new issue. This has been an issue in the publishing industry for decades.
Right. Even traditional publishers, you'll like if you see a lot of book covers, you'll notice they're going through the same stock photo sites we are. I see a lot of stock photos and nobody nobody notices. Like maybe designers notice and maybe you notice because you see a lot of book covers, but the layman, they don't notice.
Right. It's the average person doesn't notice. So we're going to open up the floor to questions in just a few minutes, but I want to pry and get some insider information because we very rarely have this opportunity, right? We had Alexis last week, and we have you this week, and get some extra information because people are tired of hearing from Chris or Dan and Kevin and I. They want to hear from the people doing the work behind the scenes, and we are working on something. And I know that you and Toby have been looking at some new developments that will be coming. In the summer months, most likely from Draft Digital, which is payment splitting. What are some of the things that or royalty sharing, whatever we end up calling it? The idea where you can collaborate with another author and Draft Digital will take all the money and then we'll decide
So
you've decided who's going to get what money
yes,
and
I have
D2D
to be
takes care of
careful here because I mean, I like to say that I live in the future in Draft2Digital because I'm in feature development, so I'm making all of the things that haven't happened yet. And then I work with developers to actually make it happen, but this hasn't even gone to development yet. So, um, right now, working on payment splitting, and we have to go with the minimum viable product. So it will not have all of the bells and whistles that Mark wants, but we're
yes.
going to have enough bells and whistles that you can split payments. So this will be great for co-authored books, I think will be the main use case. Trying not to like use all of my technical words here, but yeah, it should, like if you're a co-author, I hope you jump on this and do cartwheels and become a cheerleader for Draft2Digital. Like this is for you.
So when you're working on something like that, like you're looking at the use cases that we're bringing to you from the author community,
Mhm,
use cases from people who've contacted our customer care team,
mhm.
and And what is the process so people can understand? Like, what are you designing? Like, you're mapping stuff out that's going to be reviewed by the project managers, by the
Right.
by the
So
dev team?
we this usually starts with a request from Mark or Kevin or Dan, people who are out and in contact with authors daily, and they say, man, it would be nice if we could split payments for people. And then the team who decides what goes next in our development queue will get together and say, well, what kind of features are they looking for? What covers the broadest use base? What will help the most people? How many features can we jam in um, before we can, before that pushes the development timeline back too far? Um, so really, it comes down to the development team, which is awesome, and all of the careful attention that they put into work. But it all starts with me in a design program, and I look at our current user interface, and I guess I start imagining the future of what our user interface could be or could move into. And we always try to think like, how can we make this unscrew-upable? If people have a problem with our user interface, the the problem isn't with the people. The problem is with us. Like we did something wrong if there's a problem. A good There's a saying in the user experience circles that a good user interface is like a good joke. If you have to explain it, it's not very good. So it should be intuitive, and you should be able to just figure it out and just hit the ground running. That's our goal.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I know you spent a lot of time with the team as D2D was doing one of the most significant interface changes that the company had seen, right? Which was so we could introduce the D2D print beta and continue to roll it out to more users. Had to go right back to the drawing board. From how long ago?
We're not going to talk about print.
But you survived. You survived that whole process.
I did. No, well, I wanted the split interface from the beginning, and we decided for various reasons to try to put it together. For those in the beta, they know that we did a big overhaul in how it was done. It was previously all together one process, one wizard, I guess you could say, where it was print and ebook together, and it was just too confusing about which part you were on, and
Right.
so we split it all out. And actually, we had a report from customer support this morning that beyond the normal "help me find this" sort of question. Uh, all of the previous issues with our together interface were resolved when we split it out. So that was good. We got some feedback and we worked with our beta users, and now we have a new print process. It ended up, hello, cat. It ended up affecting everyone, but I think it was worth it.
I think it shows two important things of the value of those beta users and the feedback, right? Actually sending us feedback on what was working, what wasn't working, the way they wanted to use it as
Right.
opposed to the way that
And we're usually pretty passive with our beta um, testers. We don't we don't always send out big emails, eliciting feedback, but we do take the feedback that we get very seriously. Maybe too
right.
seriously, but we take it very, very seriously.
Awesome. Oh, that is really, really cool. Well, just a comment from Suburban Dictionary author. Great presentation, Elyssa. So thanks for sharing some of those insights. And a question is coming from Lexi. Lexi asks, do you have advice for cover art decisions when an author is preparing a book that they intend to be part of a series?
I think the biggest advice I have for people who are writing in a series is that you need your series name on the book.
Okay.
You need the series number on the book, and any sort of consistency you can get with color or content that will link those books in the reader's mind is a good thing, because you want people to be able to find and go from book 1 to book 2 and book 2 to book 3, and have the confidence that they're in the right series, in the right place, on the correct book. It is crazy to me how difficult it is to find the next book sometimes. Like, even traditional publishers, I feel, don't do this very well sometimes.
Okay, so those are some good considerations. The Kirby Jones had sort of a comment, said the D2D templates meant I could stop formatting by hand, which we love because it saves people time, via the Smashwords user guides, lifesaver. She has Vellum now, still use D2D for short works and fan fiction that I want to save as ebook files. So I guess, yeah, there's multiple uses then, right?
And one of the things that I love about Draft2Digital is that we let people use our conversion service, and it's actually in our terms of service that you can take that document and you can use it anywhere. Like, you don't have to use us to use that template. You don't have to use us to take your conversion wherever you want. We're hoping that you will use us because we put in some hard work there, but like, we really just we want you to come and check out our system, and hopefully that is enough to convince people.
Well before I started working for Draft2Digital, I've long been using the Draft2Digital system, obviously to distribute to several platforms, but I was direct with some other ones. And I was actually just using D2D's conversion because it was the best free one on the market to do my master file, then using the universal book links, which is awesome, before creating EPUBs to also distribute to a couple places directly. But then I also even use it for giveaways when I need to make an EPUB to give away to my authors, my readers on a newsletter. I want a really nice formatted EPUB to give them, even though I'll use a service like BookFunnel to deliver it. I still use Draft2Digital to make it. So I have in my own account all the books I've published through D2D, but then I also have the ones I've just for now used, and maybe that short story that's exclusive to my newsletter right now is going to be published in the future. So I can then click 5 buttons and it's done and it's published.
A funny thing about our conversion process is we love new technologies at Draft2Digital. We're always trying out new things, and our original conversion process used machine learning to automatically give people what they wanted in their conversion. But it got so many different things because machine learning is only as good as its training data. It got so many different things. Everybody sets up their files just so differently. It it sort of went crazy, and we had to kill it and start over with a different conversion process. And that was, again, Toby's the mastermind for all of these cool things, like the cover, the print cover thing is so cool.
Yeah,
Have you
the print cover
that?
generator.
Yeah, how it takes your ebook cover, but then we actually use some machine learning there to like check on the pixels around the edge and see, what's the most common color? Can we match it? All of that stuff. I just think that's so cool.
And I have used that for so many of my short stories that were ebook only because now it's so easy for me. And
Right.
I don't have to pay a designer, or I have in Adobe InDesign. I don't have to spend the time designing the cover. I can do the free conversion. So this is awesome. So another question coming up from Maggie. Maggie says, I use D2D and I have more works in the series comping, but I have a custom font that I use as part of the branding. can you preserve my internal formatting, chapter headings using your conversion software? Is that a possibility?
I am incredibly not sure, but
Okay.
I know that our customer support team is very well versed in all things formatting. And even if
Okay.
they don't know the answer, we have an operations team, and they are also very well versed in formatting. So if you send an email to support@draft2digital.com, they're
Okay.
going to get you a more accurate answer than I can give you.
And I would add to that, Maggie. You know what? Do send that request in, please. The customer service team will track that as a ticket, and not the same kind of tickets that Elyssa uses for Dan and Kevin and I are at home for the children, but a ticket. And when these requests come in from authors, if there is demand, we look at what it would take to develop it and how is that. And there's always someone at the front door when I'm doing a live chat. So,
Always
so
happen.
this is like the third time it's happened. Sorry about that. But that is really, really important. So do please email us because we do use that to make improvements if it's not something that's possible right now.
And
I
if you
think,
want
right?
to attach an example EPUB, I think that would help them greatly. The more information that you can give them, the more help they can give you back.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Other comment coming up from Peter. Peter's saying, I enjoyed the session, found it useful. There's only in for a short time. That's okay. You can watch any of these over at our YouTube channel on the Draft Digital Facebook page. And they will be coming out in audio only very soon. So you'll be able to enjoy it again or just enjoy the whole thing from top to bottom. And
Another thing that I had the best time doing was D2DLive.com, which is the countdown mechanic. I'm personally responsible for setting that up every day. So if you find a typo, that's probably my fault. But yeah, I just think that is so super cool, and it helps people with all the different time zones, because we are constantly getting questions about, well, when's the next live event? What does that mean for my time zone? If you go to d2dlive.com, you'll see a countdown timer that is localized to your browser. So it looks at your browser and it sees what time zone you are in, and it will tell you how long until the next event. So you don't have to be late for the next one. You can be perfectly on time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. That is awesome. And that is such a handy feature now because, again, there's a single universal link. And if I'm logged in as an author, up in the top corner, I know that there's a live session. I was like, oh, yeah, there's a live session. Oh, and I have to be there to interview. So I'm going to pop up this question from Danielle. Danielle asks, may I ask your opinion? Of course. Thank you for asking, Danielle. First time author here. The designer I used has a stock photo of my book cover. How do I know if it has been used before? Do you have any suggestions on how I should or might have this edited?
There is online a way to reverse image search. So
Really?
if you are nervous about the stock photo being too popular or being used for something that you don't want associated with your brand or your book or your name, which is all possible, um, there's tineye.com is one of the reverse search engines. And actually, Google, if you go into the settings on search, you can specify that you want to search the web with a picture. You plug in that stock photo and you can click through and see everywhere that it was able to find where it has been, where it has been used, maybe even where it came from. So reverse image search is your best friend there.
Wow. Wow. Danielle, thank you so much for asking that question because I just learned something so awesome that
Yeah,
I
I
can't
saw
wait
you
to share.
taking notes.
Yes, I was making notes. It's like, Elyssa, thank you. That is so cool. That is such a neat thing. Wow. So I can find out if those photos that of Kevin and I at that last conference got leaked.
Oh, they have.
So speaking of Kevin, I have to share this comment that he popped up earlier on, and it is a question that a lot of people are asking. So what's it like working with that Kevin guy? Seems like he has a huge ego.
I have found that his ego is related to his beard size.
Okay.
When he lets his beard go, you just know it's time to walk away.
It's almost like a Samson hair thing, maybe
Yeah, yeah,
potentially. Really,
yeah.
okay.
Beards are a great indicator at Draft2Digital of what's going on.
Awesome. Well, Elyssa, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share some insights. You got share so many awesome insights about the company and the look and feel and design principles. I think are very beneficial to authors. Is there any last words of advice before we close off? I think we know where we can find more about Draft2Digital, right?
Yeah, draft2digital.com is my website. It's my baby. Also, I'd like to plug Books2Read, which is my other baby.
Oh, yes, that's
Uh,
right.
Universal book links are just an amazing tool. The author website function for Books2Read. I just we're trying to help you in every way you can with marketing, with all of that stuff. So please look out.
Well, Elyssa, thank you so much for helping so many authors everywhere. And I'll probably be chatting with you offline once we get off the broadcast.